African Society of Blood Transfusion. We are partner for last 3 years. We work, both organizations are working under a signed MOU. MOU was signed in April 2022. And we have some clauses for scientific collaboration. And during this last 3 years, we had multiple joint working. We had webinars, then we had attended Congress of the other organizations. And as per MOU, we have to offer in each annual Congress, either in AfSBT or AATM, we offer an exhibition booth complementary to the other partner organization. So we already attended your Congress in Uganda 2 years back. And like AfSBT officials also attended our Congress in Delhi in 2023, 2024. It was in Oman, because we have got 26 member country in Asian region. Like Africa, you have got probably 52 countries, but in Asia, our system of working is little different. That country actually approaches us. We admit them in the organizations as a country sector. I'm very happy to say that at this moment, we have got 26 member countries. Recently, Armenia and Kazakhstan has joined AATM. It is a strong team now. In future, we have got actually 22, we have got 14 activities. Out of that, those activities, webinar, then working groups. We have got weight workshops. Similarly, we have got 2 activities where we are planning to combine our activity between both organizations, AfSBT and AATM. One is we have a program called ACTM, Advanced Certificate in Transfusion Medicine. This is online proficiency test. Like I have passed maybe my MD 25, 30 years back, but how much I know? I have to go to the website. I can see my knowledge, how much I am proficient. So we are planning to go hand in hand, both organizations. Another program which we are planning to collaborate is that nurses training program. We have got a training program is dedicated for the nursing working in the transfusion medicine. The last part, between the both organizations, success story. And one of the regular collaboration, we already had a working group for publication. We already have a combined research group between the both organizations, AfSBT, AATM, and both the team, joint team from the both organizations are working very closely. We are planning for a research. The most success for this partnership is that we have been jointly awarded by the European Commission one research project, that is Erasmus Plus, that is going to start from 2025 to for 3 years after 2028, and we are going to work for developing quality program for our membership. So without taking much time, and I must express my gratitude to our scientific secretary, Dr. Aikas. Thank you, Aikas, for your hard work. And we can see members are increasing. As of now, it is 111. I'm sure the attending members is going to touch 150 or 200. And before I come back to you again, Dr. Aikas, my sincere thanks to all members from both the continents. They have joined in this particular webinar, and I request all of you to put your comment in the chat box how to improve our collaboration. Ultimately, human blood is same. It is red in color. We have got 4 groups, A, B, O, and AB. So we are same wherever we live. So we want to develop our membership for the next level. So please give your suggestion how both organizations can work together. And thanks to you for joining. Thank you very much. Over to you, Aikas.
Thank you, sir, for those kind and encouraging words. It is my privilege to invite next Dr. Mohammed Farooq, Director, African Society for Blood Transfusion. I invite you, Dr. Mohammed, to say a few words.
Hello, good afternoon or good morning, according to your location. Thank you, Dr. Aikash, for the introduction. And thank you, Dr. Chaudhry, for the brief on the collaboration between Africa Society for Blood Transfusion and the Asian Association for Transfusion Medicine. I would not be long, but I would like just to second Dr. Chaudhry in his speech that our collaboration is really very fruitful, and we realize the similarities between the context in blood transfusion field between Asia and Africa. The same, many of the challenges are the same. That's why our tailored programs are serving both continents at the same time. This webinar is one of the joint webinars between the AfSBT and AABB, between the AfSBT and the Asian Association for Blood Transfusion. And like a couple of months later, we will have another webinar that is being led by the African Society for Blood Transfusion, and we will keep this alternating manner in our webinar. Thank you all for your time, and hopefully you will enjoy the webinar. I'm sure you will enjoy it. The plasma fractionation is one of the hot topic in both countries. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Farooq. Now, I have the pleasure of inviting our first speaker, Dr. Ranjit Ajmani, to begin his presentation. Dr. Ranjit, over to you.
Thank you, Aikash. Thank you, Navjot. Thank you, Farooq, for your, this platform to share my experience. It is a all the time pleasure to be working on this forum because it's a cross-sectional and we are able to share our knowledge, our experiences. So let me, share my screen and let's take it from there. Is my slide visible?
Yes.
Yes.
All right. So good morning, good afternoon, good evening in various parts of location. I'll take about 35 minutes to 40 minutes to take you through. Though this is a very, very complex, very detailed, and a very intricate topic to talk about from collection to fractionation. I may not be able to cover every aspect of it, every detail of it, but it gives you a glimpse how does it work, what does it encompass, etc., etc. But if you have any question, I'm happy to answer it towards the end of the presentation, or you can put it in the chat box and happy to answer whatever best I can. So when we talk about the plasma comes from human blood. I know all of people who are on this forum, they are aware of it, but just to make the things right. And from this blood, we separate the plasma. And this plasma is a yellow color viscous fluid. It is Newtonian in nature, which is like, more mechanical function of it, which means it's almost like watery, but it is a colloidal solution of proteins. And this plasma has a lot of clinical value, which means this plasma itself can be used as a drug to save the lives of people in a clinical setting, but also it has an industrial value because of the colloidal solution of protein. There are many proteins present in this plasma, and these plasma proteins can be used to save the lives. So if you look very simply in the process of fractionation, what you do is you take the plasma, you pool the plasma, and you subject it to the fractionation, which may look very simple the way I have put, but and you make the medicines. Right. And in this process of fractionation, fundamentally, you do two things. You separate the protein based on your technology platform, whether based on the, the low pH and the buffer concentration, etc., etc. And also you imply another method, which is pathogen removal, because plasma is one of the most vulnerable medium for transmission of diseases like hepatitis B, C, HIV, etc. So the proteins have to be safe, and that's where the separation alone does not suffice the purpose. So the proteins must be safe as well. So this is a very simple way, and I'm really not getting into the technology part of fractionation in this webinar. So if you look at the bottles which I represented in my last slide, it may look like 2, 3 proteins, but there is an impressive menu of about 20 different proteins can be extracted from this plasma. But not only one category of plasma, there are various categories of plasma from where these proteins can be derived for the clinical purposes. So I put this the name just to say that it is not just the albumin, IVIG, factor 8, factor 9, but there are many proteins which are used in different clinical setting, and these proteins play a very significant role. I have put fibrin glue in red because it's a kind of a kit which is used to seal the sutures, and it's a kit. It's not just one protein. So, and these proteins are used like in the case of hemophilia, and B in case of surgery, use the fibrin glue, fibrin kit. The PID is a category of various diseases. It says about 400 different categories of diseases are clubbed into PID, where immunoglobulins are used. In case of burn, you use the albumin. In same in shock and trauma. In obstetric and gynec, you use many of these proteins along with the NTD, which is used to save the life of Rh negative mother. Animal bite, we use the anti-rabies, immunoglobulin. In case of organ transplant, we use a lot of fibrinogen required. And during the COVID time, we use the convalescent plasma for therapy. Whether it was successful model, it was not successful model can be debated, but this was also considered to be one regime, though it never made it to immunoglobulin of COVID, but there was a lot of attempts were made to make the product. So with this as a background in sense of its start and the clinical value and industrial value, so based on the mode of collection, the way you collect the plasma, there are two large categories. One is the recovered plasma. It should have been recovered plasma. It's a recovered plasma. Basically, recovered plasma means a person goes and donates the blood into a blood banking setting, and the blood is separated into its component, red cells, platelets, and plasma, or red cells and plasma, depending on the setting, depending on the kind of requirement, depending on the overall, the licensing processes. But basically, in this plasma comes as a recovered part of the whole blood donation. That's why it is called as a recovered plasma. Now, second is the source plasma. This is also named as FRSS plasma. This plasma is derived from, again, human being, but this plasma is solely extracted for the purpose of fractionation, not for the clinical use. And this source plasma is fundamentally over the globe, largely it comes from the remunerated donation. But just based on the source, I have classified. And also there's a subcategory of source plasma, which is called as a hyperimmune plasma. In this particular category of hyperimmune plasma, you have the titer of a particular antibodies into this, and then you extract those spatial immunoglobulins from this plasma in a concentrated form like NTD, like hepatitis B, like rabies, like tetanus. And these immunoglobulins are used in different specialized clinical setup. And this is called as a hyperimmune plasma. Now, if you go by the recovered plasma, it is largely dependent on the blood bank, which means the blood bank collects the blood and recovers the plasma by the process of separation. All over the globe, by and large, in principle, it comes from non-remunerated donors. And it is mostly all over the world. It follows the regulation of blood banking, which means how the blood should be collected, how the blood should be separated, what are the blood donation criteria, etc., etc. So this plasma does fall into the same umbrella. There's a time limitation, which means in case of India or in most of the developing countries, the the man can donate the blood once in 3 months, depending on body weight. Like in India, if above 55 kg, you can donate 450 ml of blood, and between 45 and 55, you can donate about 350 ml of blood. But these are not very sacrosanct. These are not carved in the stone. They are different protocol. There are different regulations across. In Africa, it may be slightly different. Within Asia, it may be slightly different, depending on. But generally, in the case of men, they can donate once in 3 months. And in case of women, once in 4 months, the blood donation can happen. Which means in a year, like a person can donate 3 or 4 times or maybe 5 times, depending on the regulation. So the plasma which is coming from it is of a very limited quantity. For example, if I take the example of India, if a blood donor, let's say man, goes and donates the blood, it's very sacrosanctly, very religiously, 4 times in a year, he will donate about 450 ml of blood, and from each donation, about 250 ml of plasma would come. So within a year, probably one can get close to a liter of plasma from one donor, right? If actually she donates the blood on a regular basis. So the plasma quantity is very, very limited on this count. But when we go to the source plasma, it is people dependent, which means here people play a more active role, maybe through the organization, not directly, but here people play a very significant role. And most of the places, this is a remunerated activity, which means the person can be compensated for donation of plasma for his time and effort to the society. And this remunerated process differs from country to country, area to area. Like in the US, probably you can donate twice in a week, depending on your body weight and depending on your physiological status and the clinical evaluation, and as high as about close to 800 ml of plasma. So in a year, probably one can donate close to 80 liters of plasma. Again, I'm saying in a very, very gross way. It depends on various functions of health condition, regulations, your virus status, etc., etc. So it's a remunerated activity, and for each of the donation, the donor can be compensated. Now, how much can it be compensated? There are different systems, and how it can be donated depends on country to country, location to location, company to company. So it's a highly variable, and it is regulated by the plasma regulation, not by the blood regulation, by and large, and can collect more. As I explained, one can donate twice in a week and so on and so forth. In Europe, the standards are different. On the account of the safety, I'm not saying, that people who donate the source plasma, apheresis plasma, they are safer than the recovered plasma. All I'm trying to say that since they donate the plasma very frequently, so their plasma or their clinical evaluation happens more on the regular basis. So that is what the safety component of that plasma comes into the play. And as I said, since the recovered plasma is not good enough to take care of the global patients, it is a business compulsion. It is the healthcare compulsion that we need the source plasma. Whether it is good, it is bad, there are challenges with the remuneration, etc., etc. Yes, our regulation answer is definitely yes. It can be debated on either sides. But if we do not have source plasma, we 70 to 80% patients will have serious problem in access to the medicines. So we have to believe, we have to understand that though the recovered plasma is very, very important, there is no denial, but large number of patients do get benefit plasma coming from the source site. Now, based on separation and freezing, the plasma, those two categories of plasma can be further classified into frozen plasma, which means, again, it depends from country to country, regulation to regulation, different rules, regulations apply in different parts of the world. So I'm putting in very general, and please excuse me in case if I'm not able to make it clear. So the frozen plasma is, which means somebody has donated the blood, so, and then you have frozen the plasma within 24 hours of separation. Then fresh frozen plasma, FFP, you have separated the blood within 6 to 8 hours, depending on the regulation, and you have immediately frozen the plasma by the blast freezing or snap freezing, so that It's a plasma which is very rich in factor VIII. The factor VIII is preserved in this plasma. Now, cryopoor plasma. Once from the fresh frozen plasma, if you remove the cryoprecipitate and the remaining part is a cryopoor plasma CPP. Then there's also a term used before, that is a double depleted plasma, in which you remove two proteins and those proteins are depleted in that plasma. And that is also used in various specialized, making the specialized plasma proteins. Then normal human plasma, you separate the plasma and you basically separate in 24 hours. So there are different nomenclature, different regulation around this plasma, but this is in very general, I'm presenting it to you. And these plasma have different shelf lives and different industrial value. Like for example, cryopore plasma may be good in albumin and IVIG, but may not produce good factor VIII. So these different categories of plasma needs to be evaluated from the industrial perspective, from the production, from the plasma fractionation point of view. And depending on the regulation and depending on the various nomenclature, they have different shelf lives in different parts of the world. So the raw material is very, very important here. So the origin of raw material is the donor selection, which means a person goes to the blood center or the plasma centers and donate the blood or plasma. But it's very, very important. And as per the WHO, especially in the case of blood donation, if an organization does a very good job on the donor selection, so the chance of getting safe blood component increases by 50%. So the donor selection plays a very, very significant role in maintaining the safety of the blood component, which includes plasma as well. Now, testing of raw material. Its quality, which means when you have collected the components, especially as the reference point is plasma in this conversation, whether the sterility was maintained, the bag was in good quality, etc., etc. And then you also do the virus testing, right? You make sure that your plasma and the blood components are safe. In case of blood donation, you test the blood, but in case of plasma donation, you directly imply the testing on plasma. The storage of raw material is very important, which means when a person comes and donated the blood or plasma, you directly don't make use of it. This particular product goes for the quarantine to make sure that all the testing protocols have been followed and this blood or blood component and plasma are safe to use. Then there is the lie of the release of raw material. Who is responsible for release of raw material? That is a blood component and plasma in this case. The person who signs the release of plasma holds a very big responsibility to make sure that he and she have gone through the entire set of document and the blood component, which is plasma, here is safe. Epidemiological surveillance of the donor population is very important because different parts of the world, different parts of the geography within the country itself have a different epidemiological data, which means in particular area, hepatitis B may be more prevalent or hepatitis C. And within that country itself, certain belts are more prone to a particular disease burden. So the epidemiological surveillance plays a very, very important role when we talk about the donor population. Also, the post-donation information system. Once the blood and the plasma is donated, how do you make sure that there is a surveillance, there is a system to follow it up? So there is a hemovigilance program. It is called as a biovigilance program or just the pharmacovigilance program, depending on different parts of the world. But fundamentally, it takes care about how the blood donation has happened, it was safe, it was not safe, and if was there any reaction, was there any problem, was it reported? So this hemovigilance program helps us to improve the quality of blood and blood components and the biological system. And the most important part, whatever I have said over this panel, the documentation. As a principle, if you have done and if you have not documented, it means it has not been done. So every step, whatever you have done, right from donor selection to the post-donation information system, if you have not documented every event of it, as if you have not done it. So the documentation is the key in this very important process. Like in case of India, you are supposed to keep the hard copies and the electronic copies for the next 10 years for plasma collection, for release of plasma, for release of product, etc., etc. So the documentation is exceptionally important. I'll come to this part in more detail in my coming slides. Now, in case of donor selection or screening, typically you go through the physical examination, general health, you go to the pre-donation questionnaire, talk about the general demography, do you have fever, etc., etc. But you also go into the social behavior of individual, which is sometimes very complex and complicated and may not be very comfortable to talk about the risk behavior of donor, which means do they have multiple sexual partners? Do have they undergone, let's say, tattooing, or and so on, drug, etc., etc. So basically, you try here to see if there is a potential risk on the donation side. Now, in this particular part of high risk behavior, there's a lot of debate and discussion is happening all over the world whether the people who have sex with the same sex, is that blood is safe or plasma is safe. There has been debate. There are different the proceedings are going through. Few places it has been said, okay, we can go through certain different criterias, but it is being debated. It is not being implemented everywhere in the world. But this is one of the very important consideration when we talk about the safety of the plasma. So it's not necessarily related to a one particular kind of sexuality, but in general, it plays a very important role in sense of maintaining the safety of blood components and plasma in particular. Now, the repeat donor base. I mean, in case of the developing world, like in India and in various parts of the world, repeat donor base is very poor. Though a lot of efforts are being put, but still, if you look at the repeat donor base, is very poor in India itself. And so this is a big challenge, which means a person mostly comes to donate the blood as a replacement donor in order to help his or her relatives or some kind of help. So the repeat donor base is one of the very important area where all developing countries have to work around this so that we are able to increase the repeat donor base, and it will certainly add to the safety net of the blood components. Now, when we talk about the testing of blood, there are two fundamental things come. One is the sterility of the plasma. When we talk, when a bag is not punctured, its integrity is maintained, etc., etc. Because the leakage and the entry of other viruses can be a challenge, and the viral markers. So, have you tested the pathogen markers or viral marker? So what we typically do is we only screen for the known agents. In certain parts of the world, Parvovirus 19, etc., etc. But this is just the screening part we are talking about. We are really, not getting into more details of it. That's what we have to remember here. Then second is we do not know about the unknown agents could be there, which we are not able to understand, which we are not able to detect through our system. And there is an issue of window period, whether you go by the, serological testing or NAT testing, there's no 100% safety protocol available at the moment. There's no technology platform which can assure you 100% safety of the blood. So are the blood component, are the plasma product. And reason being, there is always issue of window period, even if you imply the best available tools, technology tools. And also the sensitivity of the test methods. That also plays a very significant role in order to make sure that your blood component, in this case plasma, is safe. And especially in the case of fractionation, the story is far more complex because you pool thousands and thousands of bags to make a manufacturing pool. And if the dilution is good enough and you miss the the viral load, there is a chance you may miss it. So the sensitivity of the test plays a very, very significant role in this entire discussion. So how viral transmission can happen, this is very important to remember. For example, if you are making a batch of, let's say, 2,500 ml, and you can see how many bags have we pulled, 10,000 bags versus 20,000 bags. And any chance of human error, failure of the test, or zero conversion, anything can happen. We cannot rule out it. And it has happened in the past. It is not that it has not happened in the past. But I must say that with a very positive note, that for many years in the past, there has not been cases reported on the seroconversion side. So the methods of plasma fractionation have become very robust, very safe when we produce the plasma protein. But having said that, is it 100% safe? Answer is no. So I think that is where the blood bank or the plasma center play a very significant role, that when they are doing the work, they do a very good work, but also when plasma reaches to the fractionation side, they also do a good work on the testing of plasma, which I'll come to that part later. And here I would like to share this a very important book, Vial 023, and this is a story of a boy who contracts the HIV during the time of late 80s and early 19, when it just exploded in the world, and how this particular boy contracts the HIV through use of contaminated factor VIII anti-hemophilic factor, and what happens in the court and how it saves. Towards the end, I know the name come while 023 through all the court proceedings, and it's a huge debate and discussion on the corporate life, social responsibility, plasma collection, etc., etc. So it is a very difficult it was a very difficult case to write for a father in memory of his son. Eventually, it was difficult to prove in the court of law how there's a cause and effect relationship, which means what the vial which was given to this young boy was not unsafe. But by mistake, the nurse, when she goes for the deposition for the witness on the court, and she says, I gave the vial number 023 to this young boy, Brad, and later on, it was proved that it was contaminated with the HIV virus. So that is where I'm saying that the documentation plays a very significant role, not in a negative sense, but even in a positive sense. So this is a very heart-wrenching saga of a father written, for loss of his son, but it's worth reading to realize that how much is the social responsibility on all our parts, those are involved into blood and plasma products. Now, this report has come just, not too many years ago, just 1 year ago, and where this is available in the Google, where how the blood and plasma products were used for a number of years in the UK, and there was no proper cognizance taken and action taken, and how it has exposed the various people of various categories to unsafe blood and plasma product. So again, here it's very important for us to remember, though the blood and plasma products are used to save the lives, but at the same time, its vulnerability cannot be discounted. That's why the safety of plasma is exceptionally important in this discussion. And this is just a very busy slide. I don't want you to go through this slide. All I wanted to say that different viruses have a different potentiality, and they're present in different blood component, plasma components, and they can be present. So there's this entire slide. Now, method of testing. Typically in the blood banking setting, at least in the developing world, and including in India, the ELISA is the one, especially where the cost plays a very significant role. The NET or PC are very expensive in terms of the public healthcare burden. So most of the places it is being tested by ELISA, and the regulation also is happy with the ELISA testing. Whether it should be generation 3, generation 4, depends on the regulation. But at this moment, ELISA is considered to be good enough in most of the places. Some places, yes, NAT is done or PCR is done, which is very good, which reduces the window period and provides the extra safety net to blood and plasma component. But public healthcare burden plays a very important role. And within that space also, whether it should be individual net or the pool test. Again, this is a question of debate and discussion, whether how many blood bags can be pooled and whether it is safe, whether it can really, not below the safety net in sense of its cutoff point, etc., etc. It needs to be properly titrated, standardized, and all those things need to be done. So I think, and individually, of course, it's expensive one. And I'm not trying to say anything, but you look at the prevalence of HIV, hepatitis B and C in high-income countries to the low-income countries. But I want to make point clear here. It's not that the low-income countries are more vulnerable for this contamination or infection. It is simply the public health care is not able to take care of this treatment. And that's the connotation of the slide, that It's not that genetically or socially they are predisposed, but it is because of the healthcare challenges, the prevalence. They do not have the access to treatment. They do not have access to the healthcare. That's why the vulnerability is more in the low income country compared to the high income country. And if you look from the window period perspective, the errors, etc., various, permutation combination has been done. And basically it says there's a very high chance that, the blood and plasma component can be contaminated with these three important viruses. If you look from the testing of plasma, in India, it is hepatitis B, C, HIV 1, 2, syphilis, and malaria. Now, automated system. Maybe, when I started my work way back 25 years ago, more than 25 years ago, even within India, there were not blood banks who were using the software. And of course, the barcode was out of question. But now the barcode technology, which we have very underestimated, it plays a very, very significant role, at least in the transfusion medicine and plasma fractionation. It may look run-of-the-mill kind of thing, but that's really not the case. It provides extraordinary safety net here in sense of tracking, in sense of uniqueness, etc., etc. So the automated system in maintaining the database is very important. And then backtracking system, again, you look at whether particular bag, particular plasma was safe, unsafe, which generates biohazard label in case if the any test report comes negative, positive, and it produces, if all the reports are negative, produces a different kind of barcode. And I think with the new intervention where we are, probably AI will play a more significant role in this entire game plan. Now, I've gone into the detail, but each blood bag is a unit in itself. And at least in the context of India, each unit of blood is considered to be a batch in itself because two different blood bags are not the same. They are different. So this is a very hypothetical. This is not a real one. A label, how a blood bag label what information should it contain? I know it's quite a busy slide, but fundamentally, it says if this bag is found, in its singular form, it should tell every information on this blood bag, and it can be traced back. So you can see all the details on the label on this blood bag. Now, the question of, non-automation and manual human error is very, very high in case of testing, in case of, safety of transfusion. Many deaths have occurred. No FIFO system was there, a lot of expiry and wastage. Instructions to use is very important, where the, automation play a very important role. Now, timely service, it's again very, very important, right? Then maintaining the donor database is again a very important. Then the national database. And this is how a label looks like, in the reality of it. Correct. So this is how a label will look like when you see in the physical space. Now, this each, when your plasma is ready for the shipment to the fractionation, which I'll come later, but there is a data sheet where you will put, let's say, 1 to 45 bags, 40 bags in a sheet where you have the donor ID, then you have a barcode label, you have a date of donation, you have negative markers, you have the volume of plasma, you have a certification of it, that this particular box contains so many units of plasma, which has been tested as per the protocols, etc., etc. So this donor sheet is the first entry point in sense of documentation. Then the certificate of quality again plays a very, very important role. And this is related to the batch of plasma which is being shipped for the fractionation, where you talk about which kits were used, what kind of tests were done, who was the manufacturer. And again, as per the regulation, was everything taken care of. So this certificate of testing and quality is another very important document in sense of, maintaining its integrity. Then each blood bag is labeled, barcoded, put it into a plastic bag, then in a bubble pack, and then into the boxes. This may be different in different parts of the world and different way of packing. So I've taken is a very, very standard way, the way it is done in India, but there is a lot of improvement required on this side of the plasma packing. Now, each of the bag, as I said, is barcoded. It's heavily documented with all its presence. Then the boxes are barcoded. In a box, let's say if you put the 40 bags, then barcode of that particular box is the identity of those 40 bags. And this is how the sample box will look like. You know, that how many units, how much volume, how much weight, storage, etc., etc. And then the temperature control, which is exceptionally important from the point of view of the safety of the plasma, whether the -20 in context of India is being maintained, and I mean, is there data logger to take care of it, etc., etc. So storage is very, very important from the point of view of the not safety, but also from the commercial perspective, from the wastage perspective. So maintaining a good temperature control is very important. And yeah, so the role of blood and plasma center is very important. In case of blood, the developing voluntary donor base is very important, as we are talking about. Then just not the donor, but also developing a stringent criteria for the blood donation and plasma donation is very important. Increasing repeat donor base, as I explained it earlier, will play a very significant role in increasing the safety net. Then whatever the blood is being donated, if it should not be used as a whole blood, which is still very rampant in different parts of the world. In India, it has reduced very significantly, but still in various parts, the whole blood therapy is very, very common. So it's very important to encourage clinicians, doctors, medical practitioners to please do not go for the whole blood if not required, if not prescribed. Please go for the component therapy so that we have more plasma for developing the plasma proteins. Robust testing system plays a very significant role, whether you do the ELISA, or you do the NAT, or you do the chemiluminescence, your controls, your testing protocols, your training, all should be up to date to make sure that your blood components are 100% safe to your best of your abilities. Then automation and backtracking is very important role so that you are able to see whether it is safe or not safe. Establishing a QC/QA system, quality assurance system, is integral part of today's blood banking or the plasma donation system. The storage condition, as I mentioned, plays a very significant role, not only from the technical perspective, but also from the commercial perspective. And at the end, as I said, documentation. Documentation, after all doing all this, if there's no document to prove that we have recruited a particular donor, or we have rejected a particular donor, or this is the way we have maintained the temperature, if we have no record, means you have not done. So the plasma master file, PMF, contains, it's a horoscope of the plasma. It is a very detailed document which is prepared. And how it's done, just I'm putting into this. So there's a blood bank, you donate the whole blood, you prepare the plasma, then there's a plasma category, then you have a BPCR, then there's a quality control of the plasma, then there's a plasma protocol and QC release system, then there's a storage of plasma, and then to dispatch the plasma for fractionation. This may look very simple on this slide, but believe me, all this is very, very important. Very, very important, especially the BPCR and QC certificates and quality assurance. So the plasma master file is a very detailed document prepared when the plasma is being sent for the fractionation, maybe for the contract or maybe for sale. Without plasma master file, it is difficult to go ahead because it contains all the vital, critical information about the plasma, what you have. So is that enough at the blood banking level? Answer is no. So when the plasma reaches, this PMF reaches along with the plasma to a fractionation site. And this I'm putting in a very, very simple way, the verification of detail of PMF, which means which reaches, of course, much in advance to the fractionation site PMF before the plasma arrives. So they have a chance to review the documents. So they verify all the detail. If there are 200 bags shipped to the site, yes, there is a detail of 200 bags. And 200 really bags have arrived to the site, not 199, but not 201. So all those details are being taken care of. Then there's plasma, which arrives to the fractionation site, typically goes into quarantine plasma. As soon as the plasma arrives, it goes to an area called as a quarantine plasma, where you haven't done anything. This plasma need to go through the documentation and all the protocol. Then there is a plasma label comes under test. This plasma is being sent to test the plasma on the fractionation side, maybe by ELISA, maybe by NAT, depending on the company, depending on the protocol. And once the test results have come clean, the plasma is released for the fractionation and it can go to the QC/QA to the manufacturing area. Now, these tests are done by ELISA, NAT, or PCR, depending on the company, depending on the protocol, depending on source of plasma, depending on the surveillance data, etc., etc. So there's no one rule which follows. Now, within that space also, few companies do small pool, intermediate pool, manufacturing pool, depending on their recipe of the viral inactivation on the product. But this is a very standard format, I'm saying. So few companies may do just the small and directly manufacturing or directly manufacturing, depending on their system. And why? After doing this also, is the plasma product safe? Answer may be no. And that's why the viral inactivation is done on all the plasma products. So the confidence of screening pathogen is very, very important. It may not provide us during the testing. And as I said, window period and seroconversion of certain viruses is very difficult to deal with. When you pool so many bags, the chances, in case if you missed out anything, you still want to make sure your products are safe. So that's why viral inactivation is implied on the product preparation. And this is done in a different way. And of course, as I said, there's new emerging viruses, COVID and SARS and West Nile. There may not be evidence of that these viruses are being transferred to the plasma product, but one doesn't know it, so one cannot take the chance. So I think when we talk of the blood from one unit of plasma, if it goes to the patient, it is one patient. I'm not saying the life of one patient is not important. It's exceptionally important. If it happens to be you, very important. So I'm really not discounting that part. I'm just putting the risk part of it. But when you pool the plasma, you make many product out of that pooled plasma and you give it to many patients. The stakes are very, very high. And that's why viral inactivation is done again, in the pools, even after all that, because it has a long-term effect on a large number of patients. This is a very busy slide. I'm putting it just for the sake of, sharing the experience that from donor to donation, you test for the first screen questionnaire, then you do the viral screening, then you store the blood. There's an inventory hold concept in the West, which unfortunately does not exist in the developing countries because the blood donation and the plasma donation is at a different level. Then there's a manufacturing, you apply the quality assurance system, GMP, then viral safety, first step of viral inactivation that is in process, then final stage of manufacturing towards the end called as the end process and finished product. And eventually this product goes to the patient. And there's a post-marketing surveillance or hemovigilance. And that's how you connect donor and patient, both are human beings, through a very complex network. And this is something, this is a very busy slide. It looks very simple, but believe me, it's very, very difficult and very complex. So I'm coming to almost the end of my presentation. And this may be a contentious issue, but still I would like to share. The source plasma. As I said in the beginning, yes, we must ensure, we must try very hard to make sure every drop of donated blood is used most judiciously in the most scientific and in the most, clinical right setting. But the plasma coming from it may not be sufficient to take care of needs of people. At this moment, US, which is about 5%, 6% of the global population, contribute close to 70% of the raw material. So 5% people contributing 70% of raw material is a question which we need to see, that so much of dependence on a country for any reason, socio-political, scientific reason, may not be a good idea. So what needs to be done is the source plasma. Can it be done? Or should it be done? Those are the difficult questions. There's no easy answers to it, but there is a need to it. Then no one can deny that part. And that is the only option. Now, payment is a contentious issue. Should we pay it? And if we pay it, how much we pay, how much is the frequency, etc., etc. By doing it, will we reduce the blood donor population, where in this part of the world, blood donation is more required than the plasma donor? Will this system be misused? Answer may be yes, answer may be no. But to answer these all questions, I think regulation will play a very significant role. So if we start working on the regulation side, how a source plasma can be collected without exploiting, without creating any social, economic challenges. There is a need to develop a regulatory framework, a discussion at least, if not the framework. So probably, this will help a lot of patients across the globe. And as we are living in the world of AI, there's a lot of debate to develop the data protection, how the data should not be misused, and we are dealing with it. And there are universities across the world, highlighting, please do not go ahead from here. There's no regulation available. There's no proper regulation available to take care of the data. It may exist beyond your biological life. So the potentiality, the risk are very, very high. So this is a very hot, highly debated topic. So my only submission would be that this is the time in the developing world to talk about the regulation of collection of source plasma. Should it be implemented? And if it can be implemented, how can it be implemented? What are the potential challenges? How to deal with it, etc., etc. And I think this is a story which talks about the regulation. There's a book, Red Market. Again, it talks about in different parts of the world, how the cadaver, blood donation, sperm donation, surrogacy, etc., is used and misused. And it also talks about the regulation. So I think it's good to take this as a point of reference, that the developing the regulation and then technology is a better idea, rather than going with technology first and the regulation. It could happen that we reach to a point which may be very risky. So my very limited point of sharing this book title was that regulation we must develop before we really start debating, discussing. We can debate, discuss, but realize the potential risk associated with it. And I think at the end, almost this is my last slide, the technology, whatever we use, must be used to make the social need, social change. And it should be the value proposition of it. We are able to create the social impact and change in the quality of life. I think that's where I rest my case, where the plasma, right from the collection, donor based, maintaining the donor base, quality, etc., towards the plasma fractionation and towards the end of the product, we are living in the world of technology. So we must use the technology which will create a social impact and will save many, many lives. I think at the end, I would say quality of plasma have a major impact on the commercial and technical success of plasma fractionation anywhere in the world. And thank you very much, for giving me this opportunity to share my experience. Here is my email ID. In case if I'm not able to answer your question, please feel free to connect with me, and I will try my best to, answer your question. So thank you very much, and I stop here.
Thank you, Dr. Ranjit. We'll be moving on to the next speaker now, and will not be taking questions as of now. If anybody has a question, please put them in the chat box. It's my honor to invite our next speaker, Dr. Nusret Nouri Solaz from Turkey, for his special comments regarding plasma fractionation.
I'm sharing his presentation. Just a moment, I'm sharing his presentation. Is this slide visible?
Yes, it is visible.
All right, all right. So Nouri, over to you. This is your slide.
Please unmute, Dr. Nouri. You have to unmute Dr. Nouri.
Yeah. Okay. Is it okay?
Yeah.
Okay. First of all, thank you so much for accepting my simple, modest request for such an important topic. And also, I would like to express my appreciation to Ranjit. He made a great presentation. Even there is not a single word missed on his presentation. So why I wish to talk after him? He made a visible and concrete evidence-based realities of the topic. But I wanted to talk about the realities which is not visible, but we all know. like the smell of the garlic. We cannot see the garlic, but we can smell that garlic is there. I started my journey in this field 1989, when the large-scale blood banks in Europe or America were producing plasma products, so-called plasma products, but they stopped after the HIV. And then industry had a big development and started to produce state-art of products. We all know that plasma-derived products, medicines, are life-saving, and anybody without their social and economic conditions have the right to reach these products. But in reality, this is not true. Only the well-developed countries' citizens may reach these products. So what has been done to support, to provide those products to the other countries' people? There have been many attempts last 3 decades, which I personally witnessed, participated, or how can I say, shared the realities. What Ranjit told to you, all his presentations, if you look my modest, simple slide, those were not the most important things, because those are the realities based on concrete evidence and regulations, so people should accept and obey if they will not be punished. So what is the reality to come to that point? Each country may have an idea to provide those products to their citizens, and our medical doctors, scientists, industrialists, they would like to do their best, but without the concrete, honest, real support of politicians and the bureaucrats, the result will be no doubt failure. What the meaning of the support? The support does not mean that a politician or a bureaucrat will express his feelings and supports on the lecture or questions and answers part of the Congress, nothing. Support of the politicians and the bureaucrats should be written based on the legal realities and should put a kind of punishment if they will not support, continue this contribution. If we will not do this, either at the beginning or at the end, it will fail. Unfortunately, I had my experience in my country. I know a country, they succeeded, they got the politicians' support, but it's a different kind of support. They established their plant almost 20 years ago, even they did not produce 1 gram of IVIG. So this means that this is a very tricky condition. If anybody would like to provide those products based on their own country's plasma, they have to make a concrete negotiation in details written with the politicians and the bureaucrats. And otherwise, it will fail. In many ways, they will fail. So, why those politicians and bureaucrats may not be that much honest? Because of their personal mutual benefits, either financial, either social, or either political. The most common political saying is, sorry, I hate that my people will tell me that politician sells our blood to abroad. This is not true. If the politician would like to overcome this, they can find a way to overcome this. On the other side, plasma plant or toll fractionation. Ranjit explained a lot of things. Even in that case, politicians and bureaucrats can create a problem. I cannot send my plasma abroad. They will check our genetic details, which is not true. They will not give the same plasma products to us. They will give their fake plasma products to us. Those are all fake. They are the tools they would like to use it. If you look and remember what Ranjit said, everything is traceable. Finally, when I started to this way that my country will be self-sufficient, I did not have a son. Now my son is 30 years old. Still, we do not have the capacity to be self-sufficient. Again, to the people who are dealing on this way, who are going to join or who are going to start, please think what I said at the bottom, two red line topics. And again, I want to thank all the participants and the organizers accepted my modest, simple contribution. Thank you.
Dr. Nouri, for such comprehensive wisdom. I can see in the chat box there are no questions. And since we have run out of time, I would request anybody who would want to ask a question, please email us at atom.webinars@gmail.com and we will connect you to the speakers and get you the answers. With this, we bring this historic webinar to an end. I would request Dr. Anand Gunasekara, COO, Asian Association of Transfusion Medicine.
Dr. Akash, I could not see Dr. Ananda, so I think you can do this sweet responsibility at the end.
Sure, sir. I would like to thank first and foremost the exceptional audience who joined from all over the two continents of Asia and Africa. It is due to you that makes it all the effort worthwhile. I will be failing in my duty if I do not thank my speakers, Dr. Ranjit Ajmani and Dr. Nusrat Nouri Solaz, who have taken time out of their busy schedules to guide us regarding this important topic. And I thank Dr. Navjyoti Chaudhary, President, Asian Association of Transfusion Medicine, and Dr. Mohammed Farooq, Director, AfSBT, for being the visionary leaders that brought this historic webinar together. In the end, again, words are not enough to thank the speakers who have joined. And with this, I bid you all farewell till the next time, till the next joint webinar. Take care.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody.